All right, folks, great afternoon, great evening, great day. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. I want to apologize in advance if my internet is wonky today. We're still working through some tech issues right here in this area. But great evening. Go ahead and drop a hello from us. Y'all hear Jet? Jet is saying hello, everyone. Roof, y'all hear. They hear you, Jet. They hear you. Okay. So great evening. We're so happy to have you guys here this afternoon. Make sure that you are dropping in. Where are you coming from? We're so excited to have you here. And you guys know that we are here for a good time, an impactful time, not a long time. So let's go ahead. Let's get this party started. You guys know I ask you what's in your cup, y'all. I have tonight. I am, of course, hot teaing it out. And I am simple tonight with a vitamin C lemon tea tonight. Y'all know it's this time of the year we all get sick, and so anytime that I can add in some vitamins, some good stuff, that's what I do. So that's what's in my cup tonight. Y'all go ahead and drop those hello. Tell us where you are joining us from tonight. Again, we are so very excited to have you guys with us tonight. The topic is I'm positive, but my team not so much. Again, I'm positive, but Dr. Nelson, I'm pulling up in the parking lot, and at 6:45, my teammates are already fussing in the parking lot before we walk in at 6:45 a.m. Right? Or Dr. Nelson, you know what? We have a big project we're working on. The majority of the team is ready to go, but I have this one or two. It's just one or two, but they are so loud, right? They disrupt the process. How do we work with those people? Let me see. How do we get them on board without sacrificing, right, our sanity, without sacrificing the trajectory and how fast of the pace and the speed that we are moving to get to our goals? So again, you guys know we're so excited to have you here with us tonight. Make sure you're dropping in a hello and where are you joining us from. We don't take it for granted that you are with us here tonight. Y'all know I get excited, and I often forget to remind you guys to, if you don't have your copy of Boss Moves, make sure you grab it, right? There are so many people around the world at this point who have this in their hand, and they are using it as a toolkit on a daily basis. I was with the superintendent last week, and he said, I got to tell you, I got your book. He said, it's marked up, and like I keep it with me throughout the day, having conversations with people, right? So it has been, and I'm so grateful that so many people have found it to be a practical tool, right, that they can immediately use. So make sure that you have your copy. If you don't, we'll drop that link in before we get out of here. But again, tonight we're talking about how do you deal with people that may or may not be on the same page with you, right? As it relates to the work that you're doing, as it relates to the current project, as it relates to, you know what? We know that our kids are having issues, but how do we stay on one accord and work with each other to get this thing done? That is what we are talking about tonight. So here we go. The first thing that I want to remind you of is when you are preparing, right, to go into a situation and create impact and create change, you've got to be reminded that it's not always easy. It's not always going to be easy, right? So you've got to go in with the whole armor on. You've got to make sure that you are constantly reflecting yourself, that you are keeping your own cup filled so that you can pour to others. Again, because again, if you think that you are going to make the maximum impact that you can and you're empty, it's not going to happen, right? So for example, a day that I'm going in and I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I've not had any self-care time, like I'm frustrated, my body, physically I'm tired, mentally I'm tired. On a day like that where I am not working to take good care of myself, if I walk into a negative environment, you better believe, listen, energy is contagious. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. You hear me say that every single time we are together. Energy is contagious, but you better know that one of those things are going to be stronger than the other, okay? Which one of these are going to be stronger that day? And I got to tell you, if you are not at your best, that negative energy is going to pull you right on over. It's already strong anyway, and we know this. Negativity travels much further, much faster than the positive. It's almost, we are wired that way, right? But it's critically important that you first and foremost, before we start talking about the tips for the team, you got to take care of yourself, and you got to keep your mirror and your grace in front of you, right? You got to keep your mirror and your grace in front of you. Something else that I want you to keep in mind as a keep this in mind before you walk into the environment, is that people are responding to life often in the best way that they know how. Okay, let me say that again. Life happens to everyone. And as it relates to working with and dealing with negative Nancy's, right? Negative Nicole. Nicole is my middle name, so I'll use Nicole. Dealing with the negative Nicole, you've got to know that that is their response to life, right? That doesn't mean that they are a bad person. All right. That just means that right now, in their current capacity, with the current tools and strategies that they have at their toolbox, right, that they're choosing to activate and use, that they're choosing to respond that way. You guys have heard this before, the egg, right? We talk about it almost every time. The egg, the carrot, right, and the coffee bean. In the book, The Coffee Bean, right, this author just simply talks about the fact that life is like hot boiling water. And people do one of three things. And this is so true. We can all find ourselves in all three of these if we're honest with each other, right? When life happens, we go to one of three things. We're like the carrot, where, you get in the hot boiling water, a carrot becomes soft, right? We just mushy, we're crying, we're upset, we're all the things, right? Two, we become like the hard-boiled egg. When you put an egg in hot boiling water, it becomes hard. And we know that the world is full of hard people. Again, I'm talking about the people, that pull up at 6:35 and they already fussing in the parking lot. Those people, right? But again, no judgment, because life happens to everyone. What's the new TikTok trend? Like, we share but don't judge, right? Is that the new TikTok trend? We know that, but so often we do judge. And so I want to challenge us to remember that life happens to everybody, and that is just their response at their current moment. But the third thing is that the coffee bean, right? We know that when you put a coffee bean in hot water, it changes the substance, it changes the environment, right? And so we are to be that. You are to be that change, but you got to go in with your mind right to do that. So y'all go ahead and drop that in the chat. I must get my mind right. You got to get your mind right first if you want to create the change in the team. So here we go. You've got your mind right. You're reflecting. You're keeping the grace mirror on, right? Because again, people are responding the best way they can at that current moment with what tools they're choosing to pull out, if they even have the tools. And so that's where we're starting. The first thing that I want to remind you about is that address the behavior early. Address the behavior early. Go ahead and drop that in the chat for me. The first tip that we want to do is to address the behavior early. We take it for granted that people have their mirror out and that they can see themselves, or that they are reflecting. And the reality of the fact is, very few people in life slow down to actually reflect on their behavior and to reflect on how they are moving and what they are doing or have an impact on the team. Let me go back just a second. I said a few minutes ago, we are almost hardwired to go negative. Right? We are hardwired to go negative. Research shows that the average adult, right, has anywhere between 5,000 to 50,000 thoughts a day. Drop that in the chat. Research has proven it time and time again that the average adult has between 5,000 to 50,000 thoughts a day, with about right at 6,000 of those being concrete thoughts, right? And you might think 60,000, go with me. I'm having a conversation with you, the dog barks, I shift my attention there. I'm having a conversation with you, my leg starts to do something, right? I look down at that squirrel, right? I'm looking at you, I'm having a conversation, but I'm thinking, oh, I love your nail color, right? Well, your mind does this all day, every day, right? And so research has shown up to 60,000, 50,000 thoughts per day. Guess what the percentage of those thoughts are that are negative? Of that, however many thoughts you're having a day, those concrete thoughts, y'all drop it in the chat for me. Again, I know there might be a little lag, so I'm going to give you just a moment. What percentage of those thoughts do you think are negative within a day? If I'm having anywhere between 5,000 to 50,000 thoughts a day, what percentage does the research show time and time and time again, right? What percentage of those thoughts are negative? Again, drop it in the chat. Y'all know I love numbers, right? Math makes me happy. I love numbers. Drop it in the chat. What percentage of those thoughts do you think is negative? Look at there. I see you, boss camp. Y'all, that's one of my folks right there. That is one of our boss ladies, our boss principals. You're absolutely correct. 80%. Research has shown that 80% of our typical thoughts, right, within a day are negative. And guess what? Those often are just recurring thoughts. The same, like, I'm not good enough. I don't like this. I look bad. I'm not enough. I'm not that. Recurring. And so guess what happens? My recurring thoughts make its way out of my mind into your lap. That's what's happening all day, every day, right? So keeping that in mind, it's not always you. Stop taking it personal. Y'all, sometimes it is you. Sometimes it is personal. I'm going to be honest, right? Y'all know I keep it real. Sometimes it is like, but no, often, and the majority of the time, it has nothing to do with you, right? People are projecting. And when you are projecting, that thing is going outward, and very few people are looking inward, right? So it's critically important that if you really are committed to your team, if you have taken the understanding that teamwork truly does make the dream work, that this goal that we have, I cannot do it alone. And I've told you guys this, we are killing ourselves trying to think that we can do everything ourselves. You can't. There are very, very, very few jobs that can be done in isolation. Even as an entrepreneur, y'all, I got a team. I have a team. It's not just me. It's a whole bunch of us behind the scenes that are doing things. And so it's critically important that you know that you can't do it alone. And so since you can't do it alone, it's important that we create teams that are as positive as they can be. Because what we know, when there are unaddressed negative behaviors spread. They spread. And it has a negative impact on the morale and the productivity. Y'all drop that in the chat. Negative unchecked behavior has a very, it's got a stronghold. It has a stronghold on the morale and the productivity. And I don't care if we're talking about schools. I don't care if we're talking about McDonald's, Walmart, the nursing home. It does not matter. In any given organization, even in your family, can we be real? Even in your family, unaddressed negative behavior, right? Negative communication has a negative impact on morale and productivity. And I don't know about you. We talked about our first episode of the year. We were talking about how do we thrive in 2025? Your team will not thrive if you are just letting the negative behaviors just roll unchecked. And so what does that look like? All right. So we're going to address this behavior early. This is the other piece of this. Y'all, we got to stop beating around the bush. Let me say that again. We've got to stop beating around the bush. Drop it in the chat. I got to stop it. I've got to stop beating around the bush. We let that elephant in the room. Everybody in the organization knows that it's Jane, Jill, and Jack. Every morning in the parking lot, they fussing already before they come in. They huddle, they get this negative energy together. And like before the day is started, everybody's feeling down because you walked in, and before you walked in, they were already, right? You know it, you see it. But nobody's willing to say anything. Why is that? That's a real question. Why is it that we avoid having courageous conversations? And talking about courageous conversations, y'all, that's an episode a couple of Sundays ago. We talked about how do we go from chaos, right, to connection with communication. But why is it? I know factually based on research and experience, right, that we don't want to hurt people's feelings, right? We don't want to be the bad guy. And even sometimes we think, oh, that's not my job. Hashtag get somebody else to do it. But what happens, again, to the morale and the productivity when it's not addressed, right? And so we've got to get to a place that we can't keep skirting around the elephant, because what happens is what you permit, you promote. Right? You think that, oh, I'm not going to say anything. It's not my job, right? It's ... But what happens is you're feeding the elephant. You're feeding the elephant. And the elephant gets so big that nobody in the organization can breathe. If you can't breathe, no way you're getting the work done, right? So I want to give you this tip when it talks about addressing behavior early and often. We often don't do it because we don't always have the words. Right? We don't always have the words. We always think that if I'm going to try to address the behavior, like it needs to be a monologue, like it needs to be this long drawn out process. No, I think it's very, very, very important for teams to sit down and say, hey, you know what? Moving forward, Matter of fact, this week is a great time for you to do this. Moving forward, as a team, we want to sit down and have our words that are going to affirm each other, that are going to hold each other accountable, that we're going to celebrate each other. Like, it's going to be a phrase, right? This is going to be our phrase that is going to hold us accountable. It's going to affirm us, going to keep us thriving in the year. And this phrase does not need to be more than 2 to 3 words. Let me say that again. The phrase that you guys agree to, it does not need to be more than 2 to 3 words, right? So, for example, one that I often use in a school setting that we would always agree upon would be power up. Power up. And depending on the tone of the power up, you know it meant, hey, we see you. You got it going on, right? You got it going on. Or it could mean you slacking a little bit, just a little bit. Or you know what? Come on, I need more. I need more. What I know to be true is people felt more comfortable saying to a counterpart or to a colleague those 2 to 3 words. And maybe they said it really fast and ran off like power up, run. But they were willing to say it because it's like, know what? I need you, right? It says, I value you as a teammate. I need you. And I need you to show up the best. But we all got to show up the best version of ourselves if we're going to do this work, if we're going to whistle while we work, right? And so that was one phrase that we use to encourage each other, to affirm each other, to check each other in a non-confrontational way. And so often we think when you're addressing behavior, it has to be this right here. It does not need to be, right? And so the more we agree on common language, common phrases that we can use when somebody is off task or when someone is swaying, and guess what? The first couple of times, somebody may be in their feelings, but the more we consistently use that, again, to affirm and to hold accountable, right? To celebrate and to say, hold up, you slip and you slide and come on back in. What happens is people understand that who they are and how they show up has an impact on everyone all day. Again, people are walking through the system unaware that they're spreading negative energy, that they're spreading the germs, that they're spreading things that are going to slow down your productivity. Because what do? We run away, we close the door, and that doesn't have anything to do with me. Yes, it does. Anybody that's worked in a school knows factually what's happening in room 100 affects what's happening in 110. What's happening in room 2 is going to have an effect, positive or negative, indirectly or directly in 200. So it's critically important that we stop skating around the things that we like. Say it. Sometimes people really don't know. People really don't know that they are coming across the way that they are, right? We talk about that. Drop this in the chat. Intent versus impact. Intent versus impact. People they're thinking that my intent is this, but they don't understand that impact is not always matching that intent. And so often we've got to make sure that we are communicating, and we'll loop back around to communication. But again, address the behavior early and often. Acknowledge it. Right? Stop skating around it. You've got to acknowledge it. That's the first thing I want to say. So make sure that, again, y'all drop it in the chat. Address the behavior early and directly. So many times, like we just won't say a thing, or we'll tell someone who you think is going to tell that person, no, it's okay. It could be you. You could be the game changer this week. And can I tell you, people will respect that. Even if they don't like it, they will absolutely respect that. So make sure that, again, we're addressing that behavior early and often. The second thing I want you to remember, and y'all drop this in the chat, is shift the focus. You can just drop that. Shift the focus. So one of the things that I found to be critically important in a school when you are going through any change management, right? You got a new curriculum, or you the new principal, or you got a new anything, or a new goal, that we've got to make sure that everyone understands what that goal is, that everyone understands what the mission is, that they understand how what they are doing has an impact on that. What I have found to be true in organizations, small, large, public, private, right? Fortune 5, not small. When people don't know the goal, they are wandering around in no man's land, right? And so, it's just like when the mouse away, the cat's away, the mouse will play. And so that's the thing. Like, people don't have anything to do, even though they do have something to do, right? But when the goal is not clear in their mind and their heart, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know what to do. And when people don't know what to do, they find something to do. that is often counterproductive to what your school or your organization needs, right? And so let's not take it for granted that people know what are we working on now? What's our focus this week? And so we know for schools, our goal is to make sure that we are producing scholars that can think on their own, that can critically, that can communicate, that can thrive on their own, right? That's long term. We might even be saying, for this school year, we're trying to increase by 2 accountability levels. We might even be saying for this 9 weeks, right, we're trying to jumpstart kids, their growth scores by 0.5, right, just for this 9 weeks. But sometimes, y'all, we got to back it on down. No, what's the goal for today? What is the mission today? And so often people don't know, like, what am I supposed to be doing today? And so when they don't know what am I doing today, we shift to problems. We shift to, what's wrong? And so non-negotiable principles of practice for me and for our team that we would agree upon is that we are goal-oriented, solution-minded practitioners. Drop that in the chat. We are goal-oriented practitioners. We are solution-minded practitioners, right? And so letting people know, like, you're a professional, right? You're a professional. And so the behaviors that you display all day, every day are either pushing us toward our goal or they're shifting us away. There is no in between, And so I think oftentimes people think that there's this gray space, like I can hang out in the gray space in the organization. No, my friend, there is no gray space. You are either aiding the organization in being great, or you are stalling it from meeting its next level of excellence. Let me say that again. There is no in between. And too often we think we can play it safe. I don't need to be the one to say a thing, or it's not my job. Like, listen, bystanders aren't innocent. I'm going to be quiet on that, but let me have some of my hot tea. Bystanders are not innocent, all right? So every day, all day, you got to ask yourself, am I part of the solution or part of the problem? And you can think, I'm being positive, but you see a lot of negativity around and you aren't doing anything to aid with it. My friend, you are part of the problem. I hate to tell you, but I love y'all. I love y'all, so I'm going to tell you the truth. You are part of the problem as well. And that's tough. That is a tough one, folks. But again, if this is our year to thrive, we got to be bold about it. If this is our year to thrive, we've got to be optimistic. We've got to be spontaneous, and we've got to be substantial. So again, we've got to make sure that we are part of the solution. Part of the solution. Absolutely, Queen. Solution-minded practitioners. What does it mean to be a practitioner? What does that mean to be a practitioner? We've got to constantly be looking at what's the best thing. I've got to constantly be looking at what does the data say about my behavior on the impact of my students, right? What does this say about my leadership style? How is it impacting the people? Do they want to go? Am I just taking a walk? All of these things you've got to constantly keep in mind. And can I tell you, sometimes I'm a part of the problem, right? In the process of trying to be so politically correct, in the process of the older I get, I'm so empathetic, y'all. You feel when people feel, but can I tell you, you're not careful trying to be so overly careful, and you can easily become a part of the problem, right? And for those of us in schools, we know that every day that we aren't doing the right thing in schools, you're killing a child's future. Every day that you aren't doing the right thing, that you want a part of the solution in a school, you are killing a future. And I don't know about you, but I want no part. So we've got to make sure that as we're forging ahead, like, you are keeping yourself in the space of being part of the solution and not the problem, right? So again, that's tip number 2, was shift the focus to the mission at hand, right? Again, so people will say, well, no. So if you're the leader, if you're the team leader, and guess what? You don't have to be the team leader, because boss is about operating in your purpose. It does not matter the position, right? Leadership, top down, bottom up, side to side, activated within. You've got the power to make positive impact. That's what boss is all about. So making sure that you activate that power to shift the complaining to confidence in the ability to make impact for others, right? And so often when people don't know what we're doing, it's an easy opt-out. And sometimes it's just a scapegoat. I don't know what we're doing. Shift it back to the focus. What's our goal right now? What is the mission at hand? Again, Shifting the focus from complaints to solution fosters a proactive mindset. That is critically important. Drop this in the chat, y'all. This one is a little harsh, so this might not be your way, right? But the more you build team, your folks will get it and it will stick with them. So what? Now what? Right? So sometimes people are complaining and it's legitimate. It's not even a complaint. It's a legit issue, right? They don't have the resources they need. That's a legitimate issue, right? Or something that they brought up was ignored. People have legitimate issues. So it's very important that we understand that, but we can't just stop there. We've got to shift. Okay, so what? Now what? Drop that in the chat. So what? Now what? Right? Yes, this is a problem. We got it. So what? Now what? What are we going to do right now to shift from problem whining mode to we've got a job to do? And y'all know what that last S stands for. It stands for being substantial. We know not the day nor the hour when it will be our last day on earth. And y'all, I don't know about you, but I want to make sure that I am making the most positive impact that I can on. I want to die empty, right? I want to leave this earth doing what I came here for. And you guys know that we all, even within education, we have a very unique purpose. You've got a very unique purpose as to why you're here on this earth. And so you better get busy doing that thing. I don't care if it's, listen, the guy that keeps my hair together, y'all, he's on here. When I say he is gifted, that is his lane. That is a very unique purpose that he is in. He better get busy doing that thing, right? And so we've got to be reminded that regardless of what profession we're in, there, even within their profession, there's a very specific lane. There's a very specific reason for you to be here. So don't negate that by staying in the lane of the gray. Don't negate that by, just being a bystander with the negativity, right? Because again, you then become part of the problem. So that's tip number 2. This last tip, and y'all know we are here for a good time, not a long time. Keep the lines clear. What am I talking about? I said keep the lines clear. I'm talking about communication. And I just said it a few minutes ago. People have legitimate concerns. And what I know to be true is when people don't feel seen, valued, or heard, the negativity, like that thing is on steroids. Again, let me say it again. When people don't feel that others in the organization value their experiences, their perspectives, or, their expertise, that's a great space for negativity to breed, right? So it's critically important that you are creating a safe space for your team. And sometimes it's not starting with safe space. Sometimes it's starting with brave space. Brave space is saying, you know what? Today we are choosing to give everybody's voice in the space value. Sometimes you got to start there with brave space before you can get to safe space. But we've got to start somewhere. It's not okay if people in your organization are quiet, if they're not talking to you, you've got problems. Hashtag Houston, we've got problems. So it's critically important that you keep those lines clear. Again, you guys know what the trend is. We say, we share, and we don't judge. But again, you got to keep those judgmental eyes, because if you're saying that, but in your actual behavior, you are modeling judgment toward the communication, people shut down, right? And so again, so often we know that negativity comes from unresolved frustrations. That's the number one place that is coming. Unresolved frustrations. When people feel like they have a concern and they can't be heard, they're going to be heard by somebody. You better believe it. Even if it's the child in the line coming down the bathroom, right? They're fussing at the child about the curriculum, and the child's like, what? How do you spell curriculum? That don't have nothing. That baby, that's above his head, right? But I tell you to be, they're going to, whoever's going to in the position to listen, they're going to do that. So it's critically important that we continue to look at unresolved frustrations. And then number 2, that second one is always misunderstandings. Something has been said and the communication was not clear. Brene Brown, y'all know I'm a Brene Brown fanatic, right? And so one of the things she talks about is clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. And we're talking about communication. It's critically important that you are always checking for understanding. Don't assume people, like you said the thing one time and people understand it. No, No, when they don't understand, again, chaos, confusion, all of the things that we don't want to fill that gap, that's what's going to be there. So as you're talking about, how do I shift my team from being negative to these are three simple things. They're places to start, right? Again, they're not the end all be all, but they're three critical things that if you would just keep in mind, again, addressing that behavior early and often. And this is the other three. Drop this in the chat. We want to be able to acknowledge the behavior, acknowledge that, you know what, do you realize in every PLC, like, you get us off track? Like, we're supposed to be talking about benchmark 2 data, and we didn't get to it because you came in complaining about the student lunch line, and like by the time the period was over, we were still talking about kids misbehaving in the lunch line when we actually were here to talk about data, to shift our practices so our students become more of them, can become proficient right in advance. So again, acknowledge that thing. And then this is the second thing. After you acknowledge, it's critically important. Again, acknowledge, adjust, and avoid. Those are the three things that I want you to drop. And we've talked about this before as well. It's critically important. And that is also in chapter 7 of Boss Moves, right? Making sure that we acknowledge whatever their behavior is. Sometimes people don't have the strategy, or maybe they've had it and they've forgotten that was in their toolbox. So as we acknowledge that a behavior is negative, or something that's happened is not the way that we need it to be going, we've got to also make sure that we are providing our colleagues, our students, ourselves, our family members, strategies to adjust their behavior, right? So you might say to that same counterpart who was in the PLC, who got everybody off task, like, you got us off task, but you know what? That's legitimate. So I think we still need to talk about it, but let's talk about it after school at 3:15 huddle, right? Give them an avenue so that, again, they know that you are hearing them. You're giving them a strategy like, okay, that just wasn't the time, no, the place, but we've got to get to what you're saying. But this particular time was for this particular reason. And then avoiding, right? So let's say you say, Dr. Nelson, well, I tried that didn't work. This person, you know what? They are overly confrontational. They are overly confrontational. I want you to ask yourself, are you modeling the behavior? Because I know this to be true. And this has been so many times in my career that people will say, I kid you not, this was one of the funniest conversations I ever remember having. I was a newbie on the team, and I was struggling to connect with this one particular person. And I was taken aback because I really pride myself in how do I make genuine connections with people, right? Because I'm not the best, right? But I know together we can be the best. And so it was just, I could not understand, right? So this particular person, I felt in my spirit, but I'm always checking myself, because this is something else, y'all. Check to make sure you are not seating yourself in the seat of offense. Don't be seated, right? Some people live in I'm going to be offended USA. Some people, like, it's like that is their permanent residency, okay? So some people, like, that's where they want to be, right? So that doesn't mean that we don't address the behavior. It does not mean that we don't try to adjust and give them some strategies, right? You still got to do your due diligence, because at night you need to go to sleep knowing that I did my best to help this person power up. I did my best to make sure, because I know that LaQuanta, Tyler, Ryan, Carly, all of those students are in that person's classroom, right? And they are being positively or negatively impacted every day by this person. And so if I'm a counterpart, if I'm a good teammate, I've got to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence to make sure that every child in this system is experiencing the best possible solution, right? But this is the last thing. At one point or another, you've got to know that you got to have boundaries. And I want to say that again. You've got to have boundaries, because it goes back to the first thing I said. You cannot be a negative person and spread positivity. So it starts with you. You've got to always, I'm looking at the man in the mirror, right? You've got to always check yourself. Keep your glass full, right? I talk about time and energy tanks in the book, right? And you've got to know, if you're getting to the point that you're working on that thing, but it's draining, it's okay to step away from it for today. I might need to step away today and come back another day, right? So make sure that even as you're walking in tomorrow and you're thinking, like, how do I start making impact in places that I know they're negative, and maybe they just need a little bit more of your sunshine, again, with that direct, like, come on, girl, it's a new week. I got some grace. Do you know you got grace this week? You got grace too. So let's activate that again, because again, people are doing the best they can with what they have. So make sure that the people around you, you are continuing to give them good stuff to pull out of their toolbox. And we know the number one way to do that is to walk that talk. Y'all drop that in the chat as we end out. Walk that talk. Make sure that we're addressing the behavior early and often, directly, number one. Number two, we are shifting the focus to the mission at hand. I'm not talking big long term. I'm talking about today. Y'all know we just got back from the break. We need to make sure that our routines are structured, that we are getting 30 minutes of non-interrupted reading time, like what specific, actionable for today. Shift that complaint to a structured behavior that everybody, an outcome. We're looking for the same outcome. And remind people, listen, we only have a certain amount of time and energy today. What are you spending it on? What are you spending your good time and your good energy on? And then the last thing is keeping those lines clear. Communication can build a community or it can tear it down. I'll say that again. A communication can build this amazing school, this amazing organization, an amazing relationship. It can build, but without it, it will tear it down simultaneously, right? So we need to make sure that we are keeping those things in mind. Y'all know it. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So what's your one takeaway from tonight? Y'all do me a favor, and this is a favor. Make sure right now you hit the like button on this video. If you would be so kind, make sure that you've even shared this video today. Y'all go ahead and drop it in the chat. What's your takeaway from tonight? These are just 3 very small entry points, right? 3 very small entry points for shifting team dynamics. And you guys know it's one of my specialties. So make sure that if your school, if your organization, if you need a speaker, if you need a trainer, a facilitator, right, a coach to come in and work with you or your team on how do we build thriving cultures. And we know that this has so much to do with positive leadership. That's not just a position, it's about action, right? So make sure you give us an email today. It's our pleasure to come in and to be of service to you guys. You guys can see some of the reviews just on some of the latest things that I posted. People are so kind. They are so nice. They just drop the comments and the feedback right there. But again, what's your one takeaway from tonight? Come on with it. What is your one takeaway from tonight? What's your one takeaway from tonight? Again, we appreciate you guys so very much for spending just a little time with us. But be reminded that you are the right person at this very specific appointed time to do the work in your school and your organization. Let me say that again. Don't second guess yourself. Don't listen. Power up, recharge, get ready to go in, because again, somebody's future is dependent upon you being willing to do that, right? Don't take it for granted. And I say it all the time. Don't take it for granted that one person has tremendous power, right? We're talking about team, and we know the team can go so much further, so much faster. But even in that, don't negate that you showing up the best version of yourself, you showing up sharp, you showing up rested, you showing up energized. I promise you, it can totally change one child's trajectory of life. And that's what it's all about. It's about reaching people one person at a time. Y'all, I see you. Tough conversations are essential to be. Absolutely. We've got to have it. We've got to have it. Making sure, again, that we are walking that talk. And thank y'all for correcting me. It's we listen and we don't judge. Y'all help the old lady out. But again, thank you guys so very much. This is the last thing I want you to drop in the chat as we get out of here. I'm making boss moves this week. I am making boss moves this week. And you guys know that stands for being bold, optimistic, spontaneous, and substantial. Drop that in the chat and know that, again, you are the right person at the right time. And don't try to show up a copy of somebody else. Y'all know that is so very important. Just be you. Just work on being the absolute best version of yourself. And I assure you, you're going to make the impact that you are destined to make. Y'all, it's a great day to be you. Y'all go make boss moves this week. Don't forget, grab your copy of Boss Moves. And don't forget, it's my pleasure to come in and to support you, your school, your organization. Drop us an email. And we'll see you guys next week. Oh, the next couple of weeks. We talked about the 7 specific areas. We talked about those 7 specific areas that you need to focus on to thrive in this year. And so the next couple of weeks, I'm bringing on guests and we're breaking down those 7 particular areas this week. So make sure that over the next couple of weeks, you join in. And if for some reason you have to miss, go back and re-listen to it. So if you missed last week's, make sure that you go back and you are catching up. Y'all, I love y'all. Yo, go be great. Be boss.